Hello friends, this video is for our kindergarten through 4th grade team. Again, this week you guys are basically doing the exact same thing, so I am just going to make one video and I will talk about the slight changes between the two different age groups. So all month long we are learning the virtue of courage, being brave enough to do what you should even when you're afraid. We kind of have a superhero theme going on all through the month, and we're talking about people in the Bible, mostly King David, who showed courage. And our memory verse, I apologize, it's 6 a.m., so this is what you get. Okay, be strong and brave. Do not be afraid. Do not lose hope. I am the Lord your God. I will be with you wherever you go. Joshua 1:9. So, I'm going to read this little intro because I didn't make a video last week, and it just says, as we continue our journey through God's big story, we take a closer look at the lives of the significant people in the Jewish scriptures. Joshua and Caleb, David, Daniel, and Esther. Each of them trusted God and found courage to face difficult circumstances. They also represent major time periods from Israel's history, from entering the land of Canaan, the United Kingdom, not the United Kingdom of England, but the United Kingdom of Israel, and the exile. So like these people we read about in the Old Testament, God may ask us to take a risk or do something we don't feel prepared to do, but he will also give us the courage we need to face it. So jumping into week 2, we look at 1 Samuel chapters 16 and 17 where we meet David. His story starts when God sent Samuel to Jesse's house to find a new king for Israel. So King Saul was the king. The prophet Samuel goes to find a new king. Samuel is looking for someone who looked like a king, but God chose David because of his heart. David was a man who would lead the way God wanted. Soon after David was anointed as the next king, he was sent to visit the front line of a major battle. When the Philistine giant Goliath was shaming God's people with his threats and no one would stand up to him, David showed up and knew something had to be done. David trusted God for the courage to do something about it, and God used David to do the impossible and defeat Goliath. So our bottom line, you can do what you should even when things seem impossible. Because kids have limited life experience, a lot of what they face seems impossible. They may not know how to talk to a friend who hurt their feelings. They may not understand how they can help overcome a fear of the dark or even asking for help. We pray that through this lesson about David, kids will see that they can trust God for the courage to face challenges in life. So jumping into our leader guide, we would love for you to join us at 8:20 and 10:20 in the garage room for coffee and prayer and donuts. It's a great time. I love being back there and praying for all of you. Then just make sure that you are to your room. Yes, I'm barefoot, sorry, and in my pajamas. At 8:30 and 10:30 so that you're ready to roll when kids start to check in at 8:40 and 10:40. When kids come in, you've got a coloring sheet on your cart for this week. It talks about just being brave. It's got some superheroes. And make sure that the kids take these home. There's a little devotional on the back for each week that they can take home and do. Then, when service starts at 9 and 11, if you would like to, you can do these little impossible versus impossible opening activities. So you're just going to read these things and you'll have kids stand up if it's impossible, and if it is possible, they will sit down. And so there's a whole bunch of different little statements here, just a fun little icebreaker game. And if you have time, you can challenge kids to do some of these impossible tasks. Touch their tongue to their nose, lick their elbow, see if any of the kids can do any of those. And then close by saying something like, some of the things that we talked about were truly impossible. Well, in our Bible story today, we're going to hear about somebody who faced an impossible task. Do you think he had the courage to tackle it? Let's go find out. So then at 10 after, you will go across the hall to large group to hear the story about David and Goliath. When you get back from large group, you can sit kids together to eat their snack. And as they're eating their snack, you can ask kids if they have any prayer requests. And then you can just use this little conversation below to remind kids that they can always talk to God if they need courage. So give kids a moment to pray silently on their own, and then you can close with your own prayer. So when it comes to courage, I have some good news. You can always pray and talk to God. God hears you when you pray. So this week, when you're faced with a situation that requires courage, just talk to God and ask for help so that you can do what you should even when things are impossible. I'm going to give you a minute to pray on your own. And if there's something that you're worried about that you know requires courage, ask God to help you. And after a few minutes, I'll close us out in prayer. And then there's a prayer here that you can use, or you can obviously just say your own prayer. Then for the memory verse, you're going to show kids how to look up Joshua 1:9, and you can practice the memory verse together with the motions. And then you can just play a little version of Duck, Duck, Goose. So gather kids in a circle or 2 circles or 3 circles even, depending on how many kids you have in your room for that day. And you are going to go around and you're going to say every single word of the memory verse as you tap kids on the head. And when you get to the last word, go, that's the kid. When they hear the word go, that's when they're going to get up and run around the circle. The kid you picked, obviously, they get to go next. They'll say each word of the memory verse. You might need to help them. When they get to go, that kid will stand up and chase. And then you can close with something like this. I love this verse. Just like God was with David so long ago on that battlefield, God is with us right now, and God will be with you this week, no matter what big, crazy, or impossible situation you might face. It probably won't be a big giant, but it might be a choice to do the right thing, even if it's really hard. And God will give you the courage to be strong and brave and not be afraid. And that's more than enough reason that you can do what you should, even when things seem impossible. Oops, sorry. And then the very last activity is our little review activity. So for our kindergarten and first graders, I just ordered foam planes. For our 2nd through 4th graders, I actually ordered these make your own paper airplane books that have really, really cool paper airplanes and the instructions for how to make them. It hasn't come in yet, so I can't show you. But so the 2nd through 4th graders are going to make their own. Kindergartners and first graders, they just have a foam plane. When they're ready, you're going to line all the kids up along one side of your room. And then I've got targets in each room. And what you're going to do is you're going to ask them one of these review questions. And once they've answered it and you kind of talk about it as a group, then all the kids can launch their airplane and try to hit the target. They'll watch their own plane to see if they got it, and then they'll run and pick up their plane, and then they'll come back and you'll ask the next review question. So those foam planes, you might want to write their names on them with a Sharpie before you start to play the game. And then you'll just close by saying, God chose David as the future king when he was still young. As the youngest in a big family of brothers, he seemed the most unlikely choice. But God used David in a big way to show some amazing courage. And my favorite part of this story is when David stood up to Goliath and said, "You're coming to fight against me with a sword and a spear and a javelin, but I'm coming against you in the name of the Lord who rules over all." David was courageous and faced what seemed like an impossible task because he knew that God was with them. And we can remember that God is with us too. So that is it for this week, friends. Thank you so much for serving. You guys are amazing. I know I say it every week, but I am so, so, so grateful for all of you. I can't believe we're already this far into our school year. Our timelines are looking so cool. Thank you for being a part of that. Thank you for giving your time and your energy to these kids in this next generation. So grateful for all of you, and we'll see you on Sunday.